Kashif Khan, you are the DNA expert. This is one of the biggest questions. Can you develop a killer instinct, or is it just part of your DNA?
Some people have the profile hardwired in them. Some don't. Now, if you don't, it doesn't mean it's not possible. Now you know what the block is.
Is there DNA that you've seen? It's like the greatness gene.
There's a pathway and a certain map where you're either going to end up broke or a billionaire.
Oh, what if the key to unlocking your peak performance and longevity was already inside you? I'm talking about your DNA. So too often we follow generic health advice that doesn't really work for everyone. But what if I could tell you that there is a personalized roadmap tailored to your unique genetic makeup? Kashif Khan, founder of DNA Company, offers a transformative 4-week coaching program that deciphers your DNA to optimize your health, energy, and longevity. And I've seen firsthand how understanding your genetic blueprint can revolutionize your approach to health. Kashif's program dives deep into the areas of sleep, nutrition, mental health, and disease prevention, providing insights to empower you and make informed decisions for a vibrant life and vibrant health. So, if you're ready to take control of your health journey and find your genetic profile, your DNA in depth, visit kashifkanofficial.com/nurse. Use code NURSE50 for $50 off and receive a free 15-minute personalized health call. Your path to optimal wellness starts now. Kashif Khan might be the coolest name that I've ever had on the podcast. I envy your name. I'd gladly change it. You are the DNA expert, and now we've had a little time offline and to go in depth on my DNA. We did this whole, blood test, saliva test, and I'll let you speak more fluently about how the test works and, just a little bit about your background. But what, what is this like DNA deep dive and why are you the expert at, everything DNA basically?
Well, I think we had an industry where, I wasn't formally trained, right? But the people that were using genomics for how do we solve disease, meaning that there's a needle in a haystack out of these thousands of genes that may solve each individual condition. And what they found was there was no answer, unless it was a rare genetic condition that you were born with, like sickle cell syndrome, for example. Nobody could figure out the answer to cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, pancreas issues, all these chronic issues that are the majority of our problems, even things like aging. So I came in as a layperson who was sick with 5 chronic diseases, trying to figure out why I was so sick. And I used my genome to figure out the path wasn't so clear. It was a combination of genetics. Here's my human code, my biological function, plus epigenetics, my choices, environment, nutrition, lifestyle. And then I saw that I started to actually reverse disease in myself and my mom and my sister and my friends, which then turned into a research company where we've now studied, you name it, from hair loss to fat loss to breast cancer, everything, and it unraveled the root causes for these things.
Fascinating, man. So it's, I think the greatest things come out of a gap, a void, or a pain point. And this one being a pain point, you had 5, as you said, chronic diseases, and your family did too. So, it's either depend on others or go figure it out yourself. And you figured it out yourself. So I did the DNA test. I would love to be able to go, in depth on a few main points that were on there that we saw as maybe, red flags perhaps, and then possibly like, hey, you're a genomic specimen, David. You're like the statue of David and Michelangelo. No, I'm just kidding. Definitely just kidding. But let's dive deep on it a little bit, just so we can, walk through for the audience listening, so they can see like, how important this is to know, your DNA and be able to, have different lifestyle changes that can, like you've done and like you've done for your family. So let's go in depth on mine.
Well, there's definitely good and bad. And I think the intention is let's find the bad. Let's find what biology in your body isn't working and how might that potentially lead to a major issue like cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, or just aging
Yeah.
faster than you need to. Some people can actually control the pace of aging, having better performance, knowing what to eat, how to train, all those things, right? So when it comes to your brain and how you think and perceive, it's really cool. But if I have your DNA, I can describe your personality to a T without ever speaking to you, because the neurochemicals that drive your
Whoa.
perception, yeah, it's really awesome. How you deal with, so I deal with a lot of pro athletes, and when I'm dealing with pro athletes, it's like, why can't this guy have the clutch? Why can't this guy actually recover mentally? Why did this guy cannot?
Okay. Oh, pause. This is so good. So I coach a lot of pro athletes.
Oh,
So there's a
cool.
clutch gene. There's a clutch
So
gene.
I wouldn't say gene, it's profile, right? It's the
Okay,
profile.
talk to me on this.
So let me give you an example. There's some people, you included, that have poor neuroplasticity. So don't do a good job of developing the physical brain quickly enough to deal with new inputs, new information, which means when you're dealing with something that's major and impactful, it feels like it has more weight and meaning to it, which means in that clutch zone, you may overthink, overanalyze, seeking perfection versus execution, versus the guy who just seems to get it done, but maybe not masterfully, right? So this,
Okay, so wait. Does that say that in mine that I am a perfectionist? Is that what like and I
you're
try to do it perfectly and I get stuck up and I don't take action and pick up things quickly? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, your brain is more about subject matter expert versus jack of all trades, right? Here's what I
Hmm.
do. I'm the best at it. World leading expert. Now get me to do something else. I need some time. But when I figure that out, I'm also going to master that, right? Versus give it
Hmm.
to me. I'll wear 10 different hats and do it all.
I don't know, man. I think I wear 10 different hats. I don't really care about perfection and I don't get fearful in any big clutch moments and I don't overthink. My wife would tell me I don't think enough. I don't know. What do you think about that? Is that like, am I contradicting the DNA
No,
or what do
no.
you think?
Then this is what I meant. Profile, not a gene, right? So the first step to the
Profile.
first step to the profile was, it
Profile.
was a single gene that tells us you give things weight and meaning, you seek perfection. But
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
clearance protein that removes the neurochemical is going way too fast, right? Which makes you highly reward seeking and able to make those decisions that other people will take their time on. So, what this ends up leading to is somebody who is entrepreneurial, reward seeking, risk taking. Like whatever you did yesterday isn't enough. I need to take a bigger risk today, right? But in a alley or say a channel of perfection or channel of expertise
Hmm.
versus I do the accounting, I do the legal, I do the marketing, all at like that kind of 70%. You do your thing really, really well, but your brain can move quick enough to pick up on the other. So it's a combination. And I can keep going because the pathway keeps
Yeah.
extending
Yeah.
into other neurochemicals, right? But that what you're experiencing is coming from the rapid clearance.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. So back to the clutch gene. So are you able to look at somebody's genomics and be like, hey, this person is, they can be a phenomenal athlete, late game player because they don't crumble under pressure versus, hey, this person, let's say you took two golfers, let's say, and you looked at their genomics and you're like, this guy has it, this one will not. Can you make that call?
We've made that call. I've done this work.
Damn.
Yeah. I've done this work with like Navy SEALs. So I was down in San Diego working on a project where it was more about trauma and PTSD. They were trying to determine why, with the same exact exposure, do these guys and gals have different outcomes? Some have trauma, some don't. And we showed them the genomics of that, but the same thing that we uncovered there leads to what you're talking about with clutch. So some people, when it comes to that adrenaline inducing moment, right? The adrenaline is regulated well, and so they're able to deal with that moment well. For some people, it surges and it's overwhelming, and which creates a sense of trauma. So adrenaline is designed to hold on to memories of impactful stimulus so you don't make the mistake again. So now somebody that's approaching the clutch, remembering the last mistake and how much pressure there is, may crumble. Somebody who doesn't hold on to the emotion, which is you, by the way, your brain actually is challenged in holding on to trauma and negative stimulus. It keeps the
I'll
information,
give you that.
yeah, not the
Yeah, that
emotion,
sounds valid.
and
Yeah.
so that allows you to now go get hit by the same challenge without feeling the pressure or weight of last time, right? And so we learned
Mm.
this by studying the Navy SEALs, but now apply it to athletes.
Okay. Okay, I got a question for you. So I've always wondered this, Cash. This is very fascinating for me, and I've got so many questions. But is having a killer instinct, is that something that's DNA genomics, or can you develop that? This is one of the biggest questions that I always get in athletes and sports and high performers. Can you develop a killer instinct, or is it just part of your DNA?
So the whole point of what we're doing is some people have the profile hardwired in them, some don't. Now, if you don't, it doesn't mean it's not possible. Now you know what the block is. And now we affect genetic expression. So what is the goal of all this is not to say, here's your results, good luck, that's what you're stuck with, right?
Right.
The point is to identify, here's a system that's not giving you what you want. I want to live
Hmm.
forever. I want to grow muscle. I want to lose weight. I want to be killer in my instinct, right?
Hmm.
But your genes are saying you don't do that. You don't think that way. Now we need to act on it, which may be a supplement. It
Got
may
it.
be a food. It may be a movement that causes your gene to express different. Now the difference is the guy who needs to express it different needs to continue doing that thing, whatever it ends up being, whether it's a supplement or a movement or whatever, in order to stay there. And when you stop, your genes go back to where you started.
Okay, that makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, so you're it's kind of like your attribute level for something is higher to be able to take it to a higher level, but it's not something that you can't increase.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
get
So
it.
and then
All right.
and that can be done whether it's with executives, athletes, or
Yeah.
stay-at-home mom trying to figure out how to not have a fight with their kids, right?
Well, let's keep going on mine. And, kind of like we spoke about offline on some things that I might be, long term diseases or illnesses that you say, like, hey, based on your genomics now, this is what could happen. Let's
So
go into some of those.
there was a couple big ones, and this is where prioritizing. What do we all do? Everybody's a biohacker now, right? Everybody's doing everything, right? It's like everyone's cold plunging, red light, taking 100 supplements a day.
Yeah.
So the question
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
what does your body actually need?
Good
And
question.
right, and we don't know, and so our DNA will prescribe that because it will tell us what system isn't working. So, as an example for you, the big priority, well, two of them. First one is your gut. There's a molecule in your body that is the master antioxidant that helps you remove toxins. Toxins cause inflammation. Inflammation is the root cause of most chronic diseases and the reason why some people age faster than others, right? So, for you, the activity of glutathione is non-existent in your gut. It's supposed to be there, but
Oh,
the gene that drives this, it's not even about what version or what variant. You're literally missing the gene. There's a page torn out of your human instruction manual, so your body
how
does
did that happen? What was that? Do I blame that on my mom, my dad? Like,
both.
where'd that, what?
Both of
All
them didn't
right.
give it to you,
Well,
and this is an unusual
I'm going to
phenomenon.
call them after this.
Yeah, yeah. Let
Yeah.
them know, and they should also know there's probably going on them too. Both of
Yeah.
them didn't give it to you. So your gut, no first line defense, cannot separate any toxic activity coming along with the food, pesticides, chemicals, packaging, even the most benign thing, which means very easy to
Doesn't sound
cause,
good.
yeah, leaky gut, inflamed gut, gut dysbiosis, which is foundational to many chronic diseases. Right, as soon as your gut wall starts leaking, toxic substrates flow through your blood directly out of your gut wall, can cross your blood-brain barrier, that can cause anxiety, depression, mood dysregulation, all sorts of things. So
Hmm.
that's one big one. Work needs to be done
Okay.
on your gut. Second big one.
Okay. 20-second timeout. So glutathione is missing. Now, do I supplement with this? Is this like, hey, I need to take glutathione and vitamins? Is there like certain foods that you're like, David, you need to eat these? Stop eating Cheetos. No, I'm just kidding. I eat Cheetos. But what would you prescribe for that? We can just take it piece by piece. So you're
Yeah,
kind of fixing me as we go.
yeah. Well,
Thank you.
so this piece gets fixed by also asking another question. Okay, now glutathione isn't active in your gut. There's another gene that tells us how effectively your body uses glutathione as a second line defense, and you're also missing that one, right?
Gosh.
Yeah. So the standard functional medicine answer is, hey, you have a toxic burden. We measured it in blood work. Go take some glutathione. If you were to take glutathione based on your genetics, not only would it remove those toxins, it would also remove minerals and nutrients that you need, and you would crash. You'd be in bed, right?
Hmm.
And so this is why
Okay.
there's
Don't take glutathione.
no,
Noted. Got
never,
it.
never,
All
never,
right.
never. And this is why people
Okay.
have variable outcomes. Like, wow, I tried this supplement, I feel amazing. I felt the supplement did nothing for me, or I felt worse, right?
Okay.
And for you, it would be I felt worse. So what you need are precursors to glutathione, like N-acetylcysteine, glycine. In fact, if you combine glycine and cysteine together, they help your body make glutathione, which it knows how to use, doesn't need the genetic instruction, right?
All
So
right. So where do I get those? Are those through food or are those through supplemental vitamins?
those are supplemented. And there's companies that already, I mean, you go to any sort of functional brand that a functional medicine doctor would use, Designs for Health, AOR, Thorne, they all make this stuff, right?
Okay.
The other half of it is you need a maintenance plan on your gut, which means you can assume, unless you've been 100% clean, that there's some damage to your gut wall and lining, which means regular fasting, which means things like glutamine, bone broth, aloe vera regularly being consumed as food to
Hmm.
repair your gut. You might even do a bone broth fast once in a while, bovine, cow bone broth. You might consider drinking teas like slippery elm, marshmallow root. These are healing for the gut wall, right? You might consider that your gut microbiome is probably not in its best shape, because if the gut is inflamed and dysbiotic, that's going to start to affect your body's ability to manage the diversity of the bacteria in your gut. So repopulating that regularly. You just prioritize this, and you will notably feel different within about 2 months. Immune function will
Okay.
go up, mood will go up, energy will go up, libido will go up, everything changes.
All right. So gut. All right. Noted. All right. What else you got? What else did you see in that
So here's a big
the
one, and
DNA?
and given that we've been speaking about athletes, your mitochondrial function is abysmal. It's like non-existent, right? And so what does that
Okay, so
mean?
we're not doing so hot right now, are we, Cash? Like we're the gut's bad, the mitochondria is bad, the neuroplasticity. We'll get to some good things, right? Like
there,
there will be some good things.
there's good stuff for sure, and
All right, all right, all right.
and
Talk to me on mitochondria. I know how important mitochondria is. The listeners do too. So this is a good one. Keep going.
50 trillion cells make up this human form. Every single one of them have mitochondria in it. Your mitochondria are constantly taking in the oxygen that you breathe, combining it with the nutrition in your bloodstream to make energy. You don't do that so well. So the cellular energy required for every biological process, you're not fueling properly, from making hormones to detoxifying to even thinking, right? Now that's one half
Now,
of the
why
story.
is that? Is that just luck of the draw? That's just like the hand I was dealt, or is that like something like that's
Go,
just how it is?
go ask mom and dad.
I got a lot to talk to them about next time I talk to
Yeah.
them.
Both of them gave you the bad version, right? Which means they, as a minimum, at least are 50% bad, right?
Got it. Got it.
So that's one half of the story, is energy, cellular energy. Second half of the story is recovery. So when it comes to, for example, if I were to build you a custom training plan, I would cut all the cardiovascular training out, right?
Okay.
Why? Because your body cannot tolerate oxidative stress. It cannot tolerate high intensity. It cannot tolerate long duration. What it prefers
Hmm.
is short burst of resistance training, weight training, right? And if I were to look at your hormone profile, it's
With it.
also saying the same thing,
Okay.
right?
Okay. I'm with that. I'm with that. I
Yep.
mean, I feel like I recover pretty well though. Like I'm never like even after a hard workout or hit cardio or basketball,
So
I don't feel like I'm tired.
here is the kicker. Most 25, 35, even 40-year-olds will tell you, I'm invincible, right?
Yeah.
And
That's a
most
good point.
25-year-olds will tell you, I can do what all my 25-year-old friends can do. Why all of a
Are you
sudden?
saying I'm 25? Are you guessing I'm 25?
Uh, all I'm saying is around the age of 50, 50
Gotcha.
is the age
Gotcha.
where your mitochondria start to deplete, right?
Okay.
So what's
Okay.
going to happen is, why is it that we can't predict what's coming when, right? What we're trying to do here is look at this GPS that's telling us something's happening
Hmm.
in the future and take a detour, right?
Hmm.
And we
That makes
can
sense.
we can now predict that if you were to continually focus on cardiovascular activity, even though you have healthy, robust mitochondria now, given your age, what's going to happen when you hit the age of 50 and they start to deplete and die and shrink? And what happens when you reach the age of 70 and you've lost 70% of your mitochondria, which is the typical average? You are already starting from a much lower starting point, right?
Hmm.
You have a handicap, let's say, in terms of where you're starting from. So, what does that mean for you? The years and years and years of what you thought was beneficial, that you maybe could have tolerated at a certain age, all of a sudden hits you. This is why the first chronic disease on average hits at 55 for most people,
Hmm.
right? Second one is by 65, because that's when you don't have
Okay.
the cellular energy anymore. So, what we're trying to do is prevent how bad it's going to feel when you get into your 50s.
Sounds exciting. I can't wait till I turn 50. All right. What do I do? What do I do? What do I
So,
do now that,
it's all the stuff we know from first of all, it is your activity, which is, on training, focusing on low intensity resistance training, not getting out of breath, not getting into oxidative stress. That's a big one. Now, in terms of inducing the recovery, there are amazing tools you can use. We all know about red light, both near and far infrared, and how they stimulate mitochondrial function. uh,
Mhm.
Intense sauna. When I say intense, you need to get to a certain level of stress where your body induces a stress shock protein, which then causes what we call mitophagy and mitogenesis, new mitochondria being produced, right? An amazing tool is hydrogen, molecular hydrogen. When you get molecular hydrogen into your body, it literally goes in, cleans up the mitochondria, and also induces mitogenesis and new mitochondria production. And there's basic supplements you can take. Urolithin A, it's a pomegranate extract.
Yep.
Ubiquinol, PQQ, these all drive mitochondrial function. Cycling on and off of methylene blue. So the good news is there's a lot of stuff we can do. You just needed to know that this is a major priority for you, and maybe other things that you're doing you didn't even need to do.
Hmm. Okay. All right. All right. All right. So low intensity sauna, having those vitamins. I have a hydrogen water bottle. That's good. Drinking out of the
So
hydrogen water bottle.
I would tell you the water bottles are okay.
Okay.
Breathing the vapor is at a different level. So
Gotcha.
you can drink 2 liters, 2.5 liters of water a day,
Hmm.
right, to sustain something reasonable. We breathe 11,000 liters of air a day. And so
Hmm.
hydrogen, when you see all the studies around hydrogen reversing Parkinson's, reversing Alzheimer's, which there are literal studies on reversing cancer, it's based on somebody getting high dose and breathing. And if anyone needs access to that, we can help them because these are hard to find, but they're very powerful. That being said, the water will give you maintenance. The breathing will reverse time.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. So we got the mitochondria, we got the gut. Anything else out there
Yeah.
before, like I just go cry in a corner?
Well,
What's going on here?
here's the reason to cry, which is
Geez.
yeah.
Geez. We
Now,
haven't even got there yet.
so now the two things we talked about are the reason why you would have inflammatory toxins in your body. Your glutathione pathway doesn't work so well when it comes to environmental toxins, gut toxins, sunscreen, perfumes, all the stuff that we were not being meant to be exposed to. Your body doesn't clear, they accumulate, they cause inflammation. Poor mitochondrial function, less cellular energy, hard to recover from the inflammation. Now the question is, how does that translate into a disease? Why? Because you're loaded with toxins potentially, and we can help clean those out now that we know which pathways are causing that. Why does that equal Alzheimer's, diabetes, kidney issues, cardiovascular disease? So if we take a look at you and we say cardiovascular disease isn't typically a disease of the heart, it usually starts in the arteries. And then eventually the arteries get calcified plaque of some sort, and then the heart starts to struggle much later, right? So when I take the artery and I take this tube and I look at the inner lining of that tube, it's called the endothelium. So this is the membrane that your blood is actually sort of touching, the inner lining of the tube, right? Your inner lining, we can now predict genetically, the hardware is very poor quality, highly prone to inflammation. Some people have stainless steel, hyper resilient endothelial health, which means that they're not going to get inflammation here. The same gut issues and mitochondrial issues that are leading to inflammation may cause cancer, Alzheimer's. It can cause anything. For you, the big one is cardiovascular disease, right?
For me, that's because my
Your lining is poor quality.
lining
Yeah.
is okay. All right. Okay. Okay.
So what
That's
would
not
then?
good either.
So what would then happen? What would happen is the toxins in your bloodstream. Suppose you did decide to go start running every single day and do high intensity. Picture a soccer player, right? And picture the soccer player that collapses of heart failure in their early 30s and nobody can figure out what went wrong. We've seen this story before, right? Or the Olympic
Yeah.
sprinter, right? Who had condensed an intense amount of cardiovascular activity in a very short window of time that falls and collapses. With your genetic profile of bad mitochondrial function, bad detox, the oxidants from breathing too much oxygen from that cardiovascular activity, now causing inflammation to this bad quality lining. These toxins are in your blood and they start to degrade this tissue. What does your body do? Your body then takes cholesterol, this hormone, it sends it to this inflamed, damaged tissue to repair the tissue. Cholesterol is a very beneficial hormone that repairs damage. The cholesterol gets there, comes in contact with the toxin that caused the inflammation in the first place, and also gets oxidized and damaged and now starts to build up and build up and build up. And eventually, either you collapse because you didn't know, or a doctor will say, hey, blood work shows that you need medication because your cholesterol is through the roof. And really, as opposed to masking or trying to deal with the symptom of what showed in blood work, we should have asked what caused the inflammation to begin with, deal with all that, and also identify that you genetically have bad hardware. Let's fortify this hardware. Let's make it as if you had the good version of the genes, and we can do that.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. So, question. So, in the heart failure, and you alluded to soccer players. So a couple years ago, and maybe it's still going on, there was a big study that came out. You probably saw it, of just the high increase of sudden heart failure. Now with the vaccine that everybody is just like on one side or the other side of, that was basically changing your DNA, right? Well, it was like RNA that was being put in there. Now, do you attribute that sudden heart failure to vaccine?
So this sudden heart failure of high intensity cardiovascular athletes has always existed. The massive spike in the numbers is 100% related to the vaccine and to some degree to the virus. So let me explain to you exactly what's happening here. And we understood the biology very early, screamed it from the rooftops. Decision makers didn't want to know, right? They already had
Yeah,
their
they
plan.
don't. Of course, they're selling stuff. We
Yeah,
know that. We
yeah.
know that. Okay,
So
go
let
ahead.
me tell you exactly what's happening. And this is why you're seeing it in young men primarily. So
Yeah.
when you add this jab, you're adding spike protein into the body, and spike protein attacks the mitochondria. Where do you have the highest density of mitochondria in your body? In your cardiovascular system. So your cardiovascular system is going to be embedded with like a sandpaper inducing spike protein, right? Someone like you who has a bad quality endothelium, like we said, is going to see that be an even worse outcome because the quality of the lining is it's going to get more inflamed, right? So now that's step one. You now have inflammation in the cardiovascular system. Why then is it hitting young men and athletes more than others? Because when you are in high performance, it's an adrenaline inducing activity, right? Adrenaline is a vasoconstrictor. This is why people that die in their sleep die between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. because that's the highest production of adrenaline through the 24-hour clock in your day, right? So you now have the combination of I already have cardiovascular inflammation, I have spike protein causing my endothelium to act like sandpaper. I now got into an activity that, because of adrenaline, causes vasoconstriction, right? So now there's even more pressure. And guess what? When you're 19 to 25 years old at peak testosterone, testosterone is an anti-inflammatory inhibitor. So the exact thing that you're hoping your anti-inflammatory system kicks in to resolve it, you're also at peak testosterone, which is inhibiting that, and now you have the perfect storm for someone that gets knocked out because of the cardiovascular activity on top of the inflamed cardiovascular tissue. So this is why you see it in athletes primarily. Very easy to prove, very, but no one wanted to know.
No one wanted to know, right? So I said RNA, but I meant mRNA. Is
Yeah.
that an actual? I mean, is that literally changing the helix in the DNA when that is placed inside you? So when that shot is taken, it is changing your DNA.
So it's changing. So there's studies on DNA being changed. It's
Yeah.
not openly being spoken of because of people getting shut down and censored. But
Mm-hmm.
what the technology is a signal. So think of your DNA as the permanent code, right? Now
Mm-hmm.
now signals need to be sent to various cells, right?
Mm-hmm.
And proteins need to be released and hormones need to be released. So if you can control the signal, which is the mRNA, now you can actually bypass the DNA itself and control what the body is
Wow.
receiving as a message, right? This is how
Oh, okay.
viruses work too. Viruses,
Yeah.
COVID will enter your body, it will deposit its RNA into your cells, and that's how it proliferates and keeps growing, right? It takes control and
Huh.
uses your cells symbiotically.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, what do you think about like this Brian Johnson, and he's going like he's changing now, you probably know better than I do, but is he changing his genomics? Is he actually like having a gene, because it's a gene therapy, right? Like there's some kind of gene replacement going on.
Yeah, what he
Now,
it's called
yeah.
a gene therapy, but it's not quite what people think. So genetic therapies are real. There's a company called CRISPR that has the ability to splice your DNA and insert but it doesn't yet work in humans. So I should say it doesn't work. There's only one FDA permissible gene therapy, and it's for an eye condition, right? What's not yet understood is how do you get every cell in the body to adopt this change? You have 50 trillion cells, right? So what he's using is a follistatin myostatin therapy. So it's not actually gene therapy. I'm not sure why they put in that umbrella. It's actually again a signal. Which is why you need to do it every year. If it was a gene therapy, it would be permanent, right? So
Right.
it is using genetic sort of
Hmm.
theory, but it's a signal and it's blocking. It allows your body to build um, lean muscle and burn fat faster because it's blocking a signal and increasing another signal. But there's other ways to do it now a lot cheaper, by the way.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So that makes sense. Now, is he basically? You talked about genes of you age slower. Are there ways to, and I'm sure there probably are, obviously in the things that you're doing health wise to age slower. But is there things that he's doing in a gene replacement that is actually aging him slower? So let's take this. A better way to say it is like if I'm trying to get just jacked, you can do it for terms of having your macros, eating the right protein, lifting heavy weights, resistance training, or you can cheat code the system and take steroids. Is there something that is done in terms of aging slower that is the equivalent to taking steroids for lifting weights?
Yeah, I would say number one is inflammation. Well, sorry, to say number one, three: inflammation, mitochondrial function, and cellular senescence and replication. So there's a gene called FOXL3, which determines we all are sitting here with our skin being replaced, our organs being replaced, cells mutate, die off, become senescent, and they get replaced. Right? Your body's
Hmm.
constantly doing this. Different parts of your body do it at different rates
Right.
and paces. So there's a gene pathway that controls that. And some people are doing this at somewhat of a normal pace. Some people are doing it at quite literally a superhuman pace, where they're advanced in their anti-aging activity just by birth, right?
Hmm.
And so now, if you can, and there are ways to trigger this pathway to sort of be hyperactive, as opposed to all these pills and all these tools, you can just influence one gene pathway that makes your body do it on its own. And we've
Well,
done
that
this.
sounds way easier.
Oh, way
Why can't we
easier.
do that? How do
Way
you
easier.
do that?
So, what I told you, I had 5 chronic diseases.
Yeah.
At that age, I was 38, and my
Yeah.
biological age was measured as 43. So I was 5 years older than myself, and I didn't know
Right.
at the time. I'm
Okay.
now 45, and my biological age is 33. Right, and
Dang.
and it's been 33 for 3 years in a row, and I don't spend $2 million a year like Brian Johnson. Remember, a lot of what he's doing is trial and error experimentation,
Well,
trying to
right.
figure out what works.
Sure.
When I have your DNA, I already know which part's broken and what needs support. Just ignore the rest. Just focus on the thing that's
Mm-hmm.
broken, right? So yeah, a lot can be done there.
Okay. All right. Well, let's dive back into mine. And what's anything good happening? And then let's give a protocol of like, hey, David, like, to get your act together. Here's what you should be doing.
Well, I would say one unique thing that you're doing well that most people don't is you thrive on plant foods like beans, lentils, chickpeas. The
Are you
enzymes.
sure? I always get my stomach hurts and I have terrible gas whenever I eat
So
beans
two
or
layers
lentils.
two layers to that. Remember, you have zero gut detox, right? So
All
these
right.
these foods are typically heavily sprayed with something called paraquat. Paraquat is
Okay.
used in plant protein, even nuts and beans, and your gut
Okay.
cannot tolerate that. So the herbicide that's used, your gut can't tolerate, but the
Okay.
protein that's in those foods, you're really good at utilizing, right?
All right. So wait. If I took vegan protein, I'd be good.
Uh,
Protein powder, vegan protein powder.
I would say as long as it's clean, because keep in mind that if it's again ground up
Okay.
herbicides, it's going to hit you much harder than it hits other people, right? It's got to be
Well,
clean, clean, clean.
it hits me hard.
Yeah, yeah.
It's one of those things where, my wife's like, don't ever do that again. And it's for good reasons, for
Yeah,
good reasons.
yeah. It is a challenge, but your body has a good job with assuming that it's not 2025 and everything isn't laced with chemicals, right? So now the other layer to this is your hormone production. And this is an area where when it comes to performance, even aging, um, a lot of people are not training as per their genetic design. So they go do what they think is what they're supposed to do. But if you just did what your body wants you to do and what your hormones are designed for, which is essentially the activity your ancestors did, then you would thrive in your training and get far more ROI with a lot less work, right? And when I
Oh, I
look at
like that. Okay.
yeah, and your training for you, your body is wired to you make a lot of dihydrotestosterone, which is the sort of manly man super potent version, right? Which means yeah,
I'd agree with that.
yeah, yeah.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
It's actually 16 times more potent than the regular testosterone, right? So
Whoa.
so your ability to develop muscle, have strength, um, you are wired for muscle failure type training. You are wired as a warrior, a agricultural farmer who is meant to push their muscle all day long, right?
Farmer. There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
So
Ancestors. All farmers.
so now this is where it's coming from, right? Your body is assuming you're going to do what they did. So now if you don't do that, this hormone doesn't get utilized and it causes inflammation, which is where we see in some men hair loss, prostate issues, acne, right? So the same thing that can benefit you can also hurt you. But looking at the locks that are flowing on your head right now, it's because of the training you've been doing, right? So so there's this ingredient in your body that if you use it, is going to give you incredible outcomes in terms of training. If you work to muscle failure, which is what you're wired for, if you just went and did the regular bro workout, which is not pushing your muscles hard enough, then you would start to experience hair loss, acne, mood issues, even prostate enlargement, because this hormone would be underutilized. So not only is
Whoa.
we can we determine how you're supposed to move, we're also going to say this could lead to a negative outcome if you don't do it the right way.
Interesting. Okay. So literally, if I didn't push myself in the gym, you think I would go bald?
Yeah. Or you might say that I can't push myself in the gym for whatever reason. I'm too busy. I'm not interested. I have an injury, whatever reason. Then we might say, okay, now we know. Here's your genetic design. You're not adopting the habit that's aligned to it. You now need to add, for example, fenugreek, saw palmetto, lycopene. These are tools that are known to slow down the SRD5A2 gene so you make less of this testosterone, right? Then we would also say add some black seed oil because it helps bind and clear this stuff out of your body. So it all becomes optional. Step one is, who am I? Whether
Yeah.
it's my brain, whether it's my heart, whether it's my hormones, what was that designed for? And is that the context that I'm in? Is that the food that I eat? Is that the activity that I do? If yes, great. If not, what do I need to change or what do I need to add? And now you come to the
Interesting.
middle
Yeah.
of your optimal potential for longevity.
Okay. Cool. This is fascinating stuff, man. This is Cash, I love this. And just breaking down it makes so much sense, right? For individual people, you need to do what's individually predisposed to your genes. Obviously, knowing that you can improve these, figuring out what these biomarkers are. Couple quick last questions. Like, is there a fat gene? Like, are people, when people say, like, hey, I just have bad genes, I've just got is that an actual thing? Like, are you just fat?
There are a few. And so there's one in terms of the actual ability to actually um, metabolize fat and use it efficiently as a fuel, right? And in your case, that's kind of medium. And it doesn't matter so much if you're eating clean and if you're, not overloading like keto, for example. Like you on a keto diet wouldn't work out so well, but regular
No, you're
fats,
right.
no
You're
problem.
right.
Like you would
Okay.
get sick from keto, right? It would actually cause diabetes over time, right?
Oh, good. Okay, I tried it for a little while. Didn't work so well. Kind
Yeah.
of got fat. Ate a lot of fat. Kind of got fat.
Yeah, because you can't, your body can't metabolize the fat well, and it will also, in your case, drive an insulin response that most people get from sugar, right?
Hmm.
So
Okay.
now there's two other layers
Interesting.
to I have a fat gene. There is a process that your body relies on to understand that your stomach is full, and there's a gene that actually drives the signal back up to your gut. Some people are lagging in the signal time, and so they actually don't know when they're full. There's
That
also,
sucks.
yeah, and if this is designed, by the way, for survival. This is designed for our ancestors, that when they had access to calories, that they would overeat intentionally to store weight, and now we don't need that anymore. There's also genetics around satiety of the palate. So some people, they eat their meal and they're done, but they need to graze at the pantry and get their cookies and get their chips, and then they bounce from the sweet to the salty and then back to the sweet, and they can't stop, right? And that's a question of lack of satiety of the palate, and there's a whole other separate gene pathway for that. So we do look at this with certain people, especially if they're dealing with weight issues, and we'll coach them how to plate their food in the right order so that they actually trigger the satiety that their genes aren't doing for them. And now all of a sudden, this major cause of weight gain is just off the table.
Wow, crazy. Okay. Cash, man, thank you so much for your time. I mean, I think there's like 8,000 more questions that I could ask you. I think you're an incredible wealth of knowledge. How can everybody, find more about you? Or, what I would encourage people to do is go get their DNA tested. Can you tell more about all that good stuff?
Yeah, in this case, a lot of people, the question is like, how do I work with you or our team? And yeah, it's very possible to get into coaching and stuff. I would say, we did put a discount on the test for your audience specifically, right? So
Yep.
you can order the
We'll have
test
that.
from my website,
Yep.
and then only because there's so many different needs out there. I didn't want to say, here's how to work with our coaches or with me or whatever. I'd rather say, why don't you talk to one of our clinical intake people for free and then figure out what you actually need, right?
Okay,
So
cool. Yeah.
everybody can order the test. You're going to get a discount on the test. Once you get the test results, you're going to get a free phone call with one of our intake guys, and they're going to figure out if and what you need and how to organize that, right? So we'll share the code with you. It's just my website, kashkhanofficial.com/nurse, because that's who we're talking to today. And you'll get that discount and you'll get that free call to figure out if you need more.
I love it. I love it. Yep. We'll link to all that, show notes, share it out, everything. All right. Last question. I promise. Is there DNA that you've seen? It's like the greatness gene. Is there like a full encapsulation of like, you've seen somebody's genomic coding and you're like, they're great. They're going to be, they've got it all. Is there that kind of gene? Is there that kind of gene?
It's not a gene, but a pathway around dopamine. So dopamine is your reward-seeking pathway. How do I get satisfaction, right? And there's a pathway and a certain map where you're either going to end up broke or a billionaire.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And why?
Wow.
Yeah, because your ability to take on risk, your ability to deal with stress, your ability to do and make the how you look like you're a psychopath to all the people around you, right? is because what your brain can tolerate, most people can't. The reward-seeking behavior is so intense that you will make those decisions that drives you towards billionaire status or falling in your face over and over and over again.
Oh my gosh. Do I have that?
So you're halfway there, right?
I'm halfway. So a millionaire, multi-millionaire. I'm either halfway broke or halfway multi-millionaire.
Yeah. And for you, there's more certainty around doing well in something, but potentially not taking the risk or seeking the vision of that billionaire status. Why? You clear neurochemicals fast, you're constantly seeking, but you bind dopamine really well. So there's a level of contentment in what you're doing. You're getting the satisfaction for what you do. Some people do it and they're still not satisfied. What's next? What's next?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Dude, Cash, you're the man. This was so much fun. Thank you for
pleasure.
pouring into me, helping me. I mean, in so many ways, here in the now and obviously in the future. So,
pleasure.
Dude, you're the best. Thanks so much.
Good being here.
There was this whole DNA guy, which was so interesting, but also so probably like damning, I guess.
There's very few times that your DNA determines outcome, but there's positive. Let me give you a positive.
Okay, yes.
So I had Allison Brager on the podcast. Okay. She's a neuroscientist. She's active duty. And she did a study on sleep and rangers. Mm-hmm. And all of the rangers had this SNP that allowed, it's like Jocko. Jocko, he's great. 4 hours of sleep, no problem. Mm-hmm. These guys all had some kind of genetic mutation that allowed them to perform and not need sleep.
Jeez.
DNA, great.
Yeah.
But if the person's lazy, well, that's not going to, whatever. But right. Then, there's very few, there's so many different genes. Are there certain genes that when it is in your DNA and it is expressed early on will be your outcome? Yes. These are typically severe diseases that individuals do not survive from.
Yeah.
That is not the majority.
That's not the majority, right? Because I think sometimes these predispositions could put you down a track of almost fearful of something that might not necessarily come to fruition because you were told this. I know there's probably a term for this. What is it? Mito something.
Mitochondria?
That's
no,
it.
I'm just kidding.
When you're afraid of the potential sickness that you might have.
I mean, it's common.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that.
Well, it's common in our culture because we don't talk about death. Yeah. And we don't talk about
wow, that's so good.
The inevitable aspects of life and death.
Yeah.
It's very foreign to us.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're afraid of. And it's something that we don't embrace. And I learned this unwittingly. So when I did my fellowship, it was very difficult for me. I did a geriatric fellowship.
Oh, wow.
In order for me to do additional training in nutrition, I had to work as a geriatrician. So I did this at WashU.
Yeah.
In St. Louis. And that's right. And I did a combined fellowship so I could do nutritional science research. And I would see 30 dying patients a day. And I had never been faced with day after day people at the end of their life. And it was just so foreign, and it makes mortality and the fragility of life so in your face that I honestly took years to recover from. And the only way that I recovered from it was actually, I don't even know if I'm still recovered, but speaking to, do you know Elena Brower? You kind of know everybody.
I don't think I do.
She is now a monk. She's a
wow.
Zen Buddhist monk.
Wow.
But she was originally a very famous yoga teacher.
Okay.
She's actually coming on the podcast at some point.
Sweet.
She'll be at the event.
Sweet.
And she is doing work in hospice and helping people die well. I mean, that is intense.
Real thing. Yeah, it's a needed thing.
I mean, that's so intense. And I guess we started off talking about DNA, is DNA your destiny, and how far removed we are from it. And I think, and I don't know, but in order to become really good at life, you have to face immortality.
You have to. Well, let me ask
you mortality, not immortality. You have to face mortality.
Yeah, mortality. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I guess
immortality. I was reading.
We're all immortality.
Yeah,
well,
I was reading about Hercules last night. So,
let me ask you this: so the people, you're spending time with people near death. What do you see in the difference of those who are ready to go and who embrace it with a joy? Because it's probably like so.
I don't think I saw that one time.
Really? Just wow.
And she was ready. She's like, wow. I have lived a really good life. I'm really concerned for the suffering of my husband and family, but it's time for me. Oh. Only one.
Was there any
out of hundreds?
Would they talk about faith, spirituality? Was there a tie-in with some of those people at that point?
I mean, but there was only one.
But just one.
There was only one.
Wow, that probably need to make it more societal norm of.
It's hard. It's hard. Yeah, it's people. Everyone turned off the podcast by now. They're like, "This is depressing."
Like, sorry, I'm not gonna die. I'm a biohacker. I ain't dying. I'm living till.
But part of biohacking is this. We're not facing our own fragility.
Yeah. Do you think part of the biohacking and the search for living forever is just in absence of the acceptance of what life is and death? I totally think
because it's so hard,
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to accept that you will lose everything that you love.
Yeah. Isn't it wild to think too that 100 years from now, probably almost everybody that is able to say a word will be dead?
Yeah.
Crazy.
But the good news is we're all in it together.
And we're all in it together. Yeah. It's
that's the one thing that I take solace in is that we all are having the same experience.
Yeah.
Differently.
But
yes.
Yeah. And that's a good point. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you enjoyed this episode, there's plenty more where it came from. You can go find another episode just like it right here. Come on. You can click it. You know you want to.